Hey everybody, Brian Zane here with what could be the greatest pay-per-view review. I'm not going to do that joke anymore. It's Backlash 2020. A lot of hype went into this show, in particular the main event, so would it be able to live up to that hype? We'll find out. But first, let's go into the first official match of the show. I did not catch the pre-show. I heard Andrade and Apollo Crews is great, but let's go into the first official match. It's a triple threat for the Women's Tag Team Championships as Sasha Banks and Bayley defend against the IIconics and Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. Kayla Braxton, what are you doing? Stop trying to stir the pot between these two friends. And that's what this whole angle boils down to, isn't it? As the match begins, the commentary is not even talking about the match itself. They're just going, who's the better friend? Which team has the better friendship? And who's the nice... Why? Why is that the basis of any partnership or storyline with women's wrestling in this company? Is about how good of friends these ladies are. Like, they only have the only two positions they can be in. They can be best friends or they can be mean, catty, evil bitches to each other. That's the only two channels they have. I do enjoy this nice little pinfall sequence between Sasha, Bayley, and Alexa. At one point, Billy and Bayley trying to work together, and Billy goes, get her in the corner, and Bayley's just like, all right, mate. Just the queen of banter is Bayley, folks. Nikki Cross makes a valiant comeback. Two of the three teams with the hot tag. Alexa's a house of fire when she comes in there. She and Sasha are on the apron. Peyton Royce dives onto the two of them, and they all fall onto the folks below Big Ol' Spot. Alexa is able to hit Twisted Bliss on Royce, but then Sasha rolls in, rolls up Alexa, and steals the win. The champs retain. I'm going to give it 2.5 stars out of 5. I thought it was an okay match. I enjoyed the personalities involved in the match, but there's a bit too clunky at times for my taste. And I tell you, if this performance, if the victory here and the stuff with Bayley and Sasha with Kayla backstage beforehand doesn't quell the rumors that, oh, Sasha and Bayley are going to break up sometime soon, then nothing will. But then again, that's just what they want you to think. Sheamus takes on Jeff Hardy up next, and really the highlight of the match has already taken place in the high package when you see the slow-mo shot of the piss hitting Sheamus in the face. I mean, my God, that is just an award-winning shot right there. Jeff begins the match very aggressively, going after Sheamus's leg. Sheamus comes back with a big old clothesline. They go back to the outside. Hardy coming off the steps. Sheamus just goes back to dominating Hardy, punishing him for the bulk of this match, yelling at the crowd, calling them enablers. There's fighting on the top rope. Sheamus is knocked hard onto the mat. He gets up, knocks into Hardy. Jeff falls on him anyway. Sheamus just keeps beating the piss out of Jeff here. The beats of the Bowdrin. Back in the ring, Sheamus missing Hardy in the corner, hits the ring post. Twist of fate and a swanton, and Sheamus barely gets his foot on the ropes within milliseconds there. Jeff decides to run on the barricade with the plexiglass assist, but he's taken out with the bro kick in midair, another one in the ring, and Sheamus wins this hard-fought contest. I give this one 4 stars out of 5. There's a bit of a caveat, though. I will say this: fantastic match, wrong guy won. I thought from a physical storytelling standpoint, this match far exceeded my expectations going in. This is one of the matches I was the least interested in going into this thing, and it was one of the better matches all told. But man, after everything we saw Sheamus put Jeff Hardy through over the last several weeks, you're going to tell me Jeff doesn't win his own redemption story? Are we really going to stretch this out to another pay-per-view cycle with these two? Or is this just done? I can't imagine a rematch here. What more does Jeff have to prove after a match like that with Sheamus? And what more does Sheamus have to prove? Maybe this will turn into something where, Jeff keeps hurtling down the abyss and he finally has, some angle that really pulls him out of that. But I don't know. I don't know where they're going to go with that. So, yeah, like I said, that was a great matchup, but man, it really just kind of kicks you in the teeth to see Sheamus win like that. The bully wins. Miz and Morrison are interviewed backstage, and that's where we discover that only the man who beats Strowman will become the Universal Champion. No co-champs. Miz and Morrison downplay this very badly. Also, Otis and Mandy show up, and Otis says he might cash in on whoever wins the handicap match. Up next, Nia Jax challenges Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship. Asuka works circles around Jax early on, concentrates a lot on the arm, but Nia is still overpowering her. Nia hits a jackhammer and it does not look very good. Asuka comes back with a flurry of offense, knees Nia in the face, hits a missile dropkick as well. Nia is still much too strong. We get an armbar over the ropes as they're fighting in the corner. They fight on the outside. They end up getting a double countout. This one gets 1 star out of 5 for me. I thought that after some initial rough stuff with Nia in the early going, I felt like she was kind of like very blatantly telegraphing when she was feeding into Asuka for a lot of that early run. But after that, I think they recovered okay. But then, I mean, I just hate double count out finishes in general. I think it protects nobody. And especially when you consider Asuka really needs a big win right about now after a couple of embarrassing showcases against Charlotte, where she's lost the last 2 times. Granted, one was by count out, but still, I think that she needed this big win. And I guess we're just going to have to wait a little bit longer. Yay! Backstage, Lana confronts MVP about being held backstage during Lashley's matches, but MVP says it wasn't his call. You should talk to your husband about that, but you won't because you won't like what you hear. Oh, damn. Universal Championship Handicap match up next as Braun Strowman defends against the team of The Miz and John Morrison, who've been booked in this angle as a couple of merry pranksters. Gosh, I wonder who's going to win this one. Before the match begins, The Miz and Morrison finally debut their music video for Hey, Hey, Hey. It's like a Right Now parody with very obvious auto-tune when they sing. It starts out kind of cringe, but then as it builds to the chorus, it's pretty catchy and it's pretty hilarious, the insult they have for Strowman.
Hey, hey, hey! Oh, oh, the Universal Champion needs to go. Hey, hey! Braun went the bench till he was 6 years old.
Braun cuts off the video again just when it was getting good. The match begins. I love seeing Morrison be all agile and shit around Braun. We get some great double team sequences to chop down the big redwood by the former tag champs. Every time Braun gets a bit of steam, Miz and Morrison are able to find a way to cut him off. We get this cool skull-crushing finale back stomp combo by the challengers. Morrison goes to the pin, but Miz pulls him off, and here we go. The inevitable conflict between these two guys. Who's going to be the Blue Universal Champion? Miz apologizes and puts Morrison back on top, but it's a kick out. Strowman chokeslams The Miz, takes down Morrison, running power slam. Strowman wins and retains. Was there ever any doubt? I give this one 3 stars out of 5. I thought it was an okay, not great handicap match. I thought everyone, though, looked good in the process. I think Strowman looked great in victory, and Miz and Morrison, they had some good moments of brilliance as well, especially when it came to the double team stuff. I liked how when they did the inevitable, even though it was inevitable that whole thing, only one person can be the champion, you knew there was going to be some kind of like dissension that causes the mask to slip and for Miz and Morrison to lose. That was very academic, but the way they got to that point I thought was good. And also we didn't like see multiple instances of them trying to sabotage each other and they didn't come to blows like we see so many other times with situations like that. So I think it was nice to kind of held back on that. I mean, the fact that The Miz and Morrison even got this far at all when they were booked as these, like, you know, again, merry pranksters, we're going to put jokes on people. Like, that's not, I don't know, it's where they're in this position at all, but I think they did good. They made Strowman look very powerful here. The new Intercontinental Champion, AJ Styles, is interviewed backstage. He says Daniel Bryan is great, but he's not phenomenal. He also says in the promo, well, gosh, I'm the greatest champion in WWE history, so I'm going to have the greatest championship celebration. No, let us stop throwing that word around, please. Drew McIntyre defends the WWE Championship against Bobby Lashley, who's accompanied to the ring by MVP. Before the match begins, all 3 guys are in the ring. MVP getting in Drew's face. That allows Lashley to get the full Nelson locked in for a very long time. Drew's face is turning a shade of purple. He's in the hold for so long. Many referees try and break it up, but Lashley just takes his time with it. After the hold's been released and Drew recovers for a minute, the match begins, and it's all Lashley for the first couple of minutes. Drew makes a little comeback, but Lashley snuffs it out. Drew is able to force Lashley out of the ring. Lashley gets Drew on his shoulders, almost drops him on his head, though. Yikes. They did try again, though. Slams Drew into the ring post. Drew hucks Lashley into the barricade and a big old suplex on the floor, continuing his comeback in the ring. Lashley with a big-ass slam on Drew. Drew kicks out at 1, a flatliner, a kick out at 1. I've really started to notice this in Drew McIntyre's big matches so far, with Brock Lesnar, with Seth Rollins, with Bobby Lashley. Part of his comeback now, as it seems, is him just kicking out at 1 of big moves. No one else does that, only Drew. Full Nelson attempt, McIntyre fights his way out of it. They fight in the corner. Drew gets Lashley into a reverse Alabama slam. We got a kick out. Drew goes for a flying clothesline, but he's caught in an arm bar and a side headlock. Drew almost goes for a very dangerous looking tombstone, but just drops him on his back. Lashley goes for a spear. Drew catches him in a Kimura, but we get a rope break. They get a superplex. Drew goes to the Claymore, but Lashley hits a spear, and we get a 2 count. In comes Lana. She gets on the apron and starts telling the referee that he cheated, which, all right. MVP's yelling at her to get down. Lashley's knocked into Lana and she falls onto MVP. Claymore by Drew, and McIntyre wins and retains. I give this 3.5 out of 5. I love the physical nature of matches like these. Just two big dudes beating the hell out of each other, making it look pretty impressive. I thought that the way that Lashley was kind of protected in the end, he was taken out because his head wasn't in the game because his wife got involved when he told her not to. So I kind of like that out for him. But man, I think Lashley had a really good performance here. And I think Lashley at some point this year should become the champion. I think that he's really put the work in. I think he'd be great in that role. He and MVP working together. I didn't expect Drew to win here, but I didn't expect Lashley to win here, I should say. But I would expect him to eventually win, maybe in a rematch down the line. I'm curious to see where they're going to go with the Lana business in this storyline. I mean, it's probably going to build up to MVP and Lashley seeing her as a liability. Lashley will want a divorce, most likely, but then I'm sure Lana will get the last laugh or something. Who really knows at this point? But again, Lashley did great here. He should be champion at some point, but I don't think it's this time just quite yet. Give Drew like 1 or 2 more months, please. So at the last minute on Sunday, they announced the Raw Tag Title match would be happening between the Street Profits and the Viking Raiders, but we don't exactly get that. As they're beginning to announce the match, we suddenly see the Raiders and the Vikings brawling outside the building. They wreck Braun Strowman's poor car once again. They fight their way to the backstage area. The Street Profits produce some golf clubs, and suddenly the Viking Raiders have shields. Eric's got an axe, and Ivar, because he's the wacky one, has got a bowling ball. There's a face-off. The Vikings chase the Profits away. There's another face-off. They decide to put the weapons down and start fighting. Ivar gets flashbacks to when they went bowling that one time. Then he rolls the ball to Montez Ford's nuts. In the very next scene, we get a moment in which Angelo tackles Ivar through this glass window, which drastically changes the tone. Ivar gets more flashbacks to turkey legs now. They start bickering and make their way to another lot, and before they start fighting, they're cut off by this ninja biker gang, which is led inexplicably by Akira Tozawa. Why? Why any of this? Suddenly, the Viking Raiders and the Street Profits, they decide to join forces, become the Viking Profits, and they just decide to take care of the ninjas themselves. They do a big 4-way fist bump. Time stands still. Tozawa presents the Chungus, this giant super boss ninja, a super giant ninja, if you will. Ivar picks up this nearby turkey leg using the Force. He's got that power now all of a sudden. Then they all are scared of the Chungus. They run off. We never see the giant ninja again. They run onto this row of production trucks. The fight between all 4 guys then resumes. They start fighting their way into this giant dumpster that's below the trucks, and then all of a sudden Ivar has yet another flashback. But all the times in their previous skits where some lady says, "Hey, you're cute, but Eric, not so much," and they're woken up by a referee, Jessica, and who then just goes, "Hey, Ivar, you're cute, Eric, not so much." Seems like a real appropriate time to drop that information, Jessica. And then the final scene of this nightmare is that there's something alive in the dumpster, and they start to freak out and run away. You see this black tentacle flop into the shot, cut to black, and that's where it ends. And then, like, after the commercial for the shop zone or whatever, you come back to the announce team, who don't seem to sell what just went on at all. There's, well, I guess that championship match isn't happening. No, you need to explain a lot of shit here. Why did this happen? Why did any of that happen? I have enjoyed a lot of the cinematic stuff throughout this year that we've seen in the wake of COVID-19, but this is just not it. I've enjoyed wacky shit in the cinematic stuff as well, but all this was just like, hey, remember this one gag from this meh series of skits and vignettes we've been doing all month instead of wrestling? It was random moment after random moment. And look, I love me some random humor. I love some good random cutaway stuff, but this just there's no basis in anything. Why does Ivar suddenly have the Force? What's that got to do? Why was there a group of ninjas? Have the ninjas been mentioned at all in the build-up to this? What's Akira Tozawa got to do with this? It was just moment after moment of, hey, this is supposed to be really funny, but we're not going to tell you why it is. You just have to figure it out for yourself. There was no context to any of the new twists they had in this thing that were meant for humor, and the gags that did have context, like all the throwbacks they had to all the other competitive skits, to me just fell flat. I hated this thing. I try and give the cinematic things a chance, and by and large, they've been entertaining in a lot of ways. But man, this one was not. Woo, this was not it. And they couldn't find the balance between like funny and then like the serious stuff when they were fighting. I don't want to. How do you rate this? This wasn't even a match. It was like a skit essentially. If it were a match, I would give it 0 stars. But I'm gonna let it slide for this one. I'm not gonna count toward the record, but it's gonna be a con because it was a skit and it was bad and it was a bad skit. Coming up in July, Extreme Rules. Boy, that's a rough logo. In your main event, the greatest wrestling match ever, they like to call it, between Edge and Randy Orton. When we first heard the phrase, greatest wrestling match ever, as a way to build the match, we thought it was all a joke. No, it was actually a very, very real thing. We've been promised an enhanced version of this match, however, because they say this match should be in front of thousands of fans, so we're going to do the next best thing. So they've promised unique camera angles and amplified audio. Boy, oh boy, what's that going to mean? Well, it means they're going to pipe in some crowd noise, very Grandmasters of Wrestling, AWF, WXO, XWF kind of vibes with the dubbed crowd noise here. With stuff like that, with that kind of effect, they should either do it for all the matches or none of them. The fact they decided to, hey, we're going to turn on this special sound sweetener here for this one particular matchup after all these other matches don't have that seemed kind of weird. And so then the whole match itself is, the way they kind of like, they have lots of quick cuts, more so than usual, lots of tight shots as well. Referee Charles Robinson is dressed up in like the powder blue button-up shirt with the bow tie for reasons. And then after Edge and Orton make their way to the ring, we get the ghost of Howard Finkel. The MSG, the classic MSG microphone descends from the rafters. We hear some older original introductions that Howard Finkel recorded for Edge and Orton. And I couldn't believe that. I mean, some people say it was a crass promotional tactic or whatever. I don't agree. I wasn't offended, but I was I was like, what? Really? I mean, I don't know. I was so back and forth on that. When I first saw it happening, my mouth was agape. I was shocked by what I was seeing here. I wasn't mad. I was just, okay, they're really going on with this one. They're going to have like the greatest ring announcer introduce the greatest wrestling match. I guess it was a nice tribute. I know that it's been met with a lot of positive feedback by people, but also a lot of negative feedback. I'm somewhere in the middle where I'm like, I get why they did it, and I appreciate the gesture, but when you're already bombarded by like, hey, we're going to add this fake crowd noise in here, and we've been promised unique camera angles, whatever that means, we'll find out soon enough. All of a sudden you've got Howard Finkel's disembodied voice. I'm surprised they didn't have the money to bust out a hologram of him. I'm surprised we didn't get like Jim Ross sound bites spliced into the commentary as well. The match begins with an extreme lock-up close-up if you're wondering what kind of unique camera angles we've been promised here. The announcers have definitely ramped up their energy for this one, I think to maybe match the increased audio from the crowd and everything. But I also realized during this matchup, not only was this match taped a couple of days in advance, but also this commentary seems to be added in later. There's more than one occasion where you can see the announce team and their lips are not matching up with the audio that you hear. A lot of basics and fundamentals in this match to start things off. The international spot, we get headlocks and arm drags. They work their way up to the top turnbuckle and threaten a superplex to the floor, fight their way down. Big clothesline to Orton on the apron, and the headbutt before that has busted Orton open. Fight on the outside, shoved into the plexiglass. Orton just keeps attacking Edge and keeps restarting the count. Slams on the table and whispers something in Orton's ear. I'm gonna fucking kill you. Like, what is he saying there?
Get in here!
Randy looks up to the heavens before he busts out a Three Amigos attempt, but I thought that he said that Eddie was in hell. Edge blocks it and hits Three Amigos of his own. We get a chop off, and they have to compare it on commentary to Flair and Steamboat. They have a fight on the outside, Orton pulling Edge chest and neck first into the turnbuckle bolt, a superplex with a great in-ring camera angle. A mid-air collision where they both go for a cross body. Edge goes to the top, but Orton cuts him off. Orton goes to the draping DDT, but Edge hits the execution. We get a 2 count. Edge the top rope cross body and a kick out. Edge working Orton's arm, turns into Orton hitting the angle slam. We get a kick out. Orton goes for a drop kick, but Edge catches him into a power bomb. Edge dumped to the outside, draping DDT with extreme Edge close up. We had a spear attempt, power slam attempt, unprettier and a kick out. Orton hits Edge with a pedigree and a kick out. Edge with a rock bottom, I guess, because the Rock feud with Triple H and a kick out. We get a backslide fight. Edge with a flurry of roll-up attempts, RKO out of nowhere and a kick out. When is the last time anyone kicked out of the RKO. Orton decides to go for the pump, but he takes 2 spears and a kick out. Orton hits another RKO and another kick out. At this point, we have kicked out of way too many finishers, not just theirs, but others as well. Orton with what looks to be an incidental low blow, the punt, the pinfall, the win. Then after the match, Orton quietly tells Edge to go home and be a family man, tell him Uncle Randy said hi, damn that's cold. Edge refusing medical attention on his way out of the ring as we fade to black. So was that the greatest wrestling match ever? That's hard to say, that's up to you to decide, it's completely subjective. But was it a damn good match? Absolutely, yes it was. I give this one 4.5 stars out of 5. After what we saw on Friday with AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan in the tournament finals, I thought there's no way that Edge and Orton could live up to that, but they were able to do so and make a very exciting, dramatic match. I will say, as annoying as the crowd dubbing was, like hearing it again, like kind of like, oh, you know, like it feels like it's a bigger match than it is, but that's kind of by design. But you still, no, there's still like 36 people out in the crowd. That's like not what we want at all. The only reason I'm taking the half star off, so it's not a total 5-star thing, is because there are too many finisher kickouts for my liking, and also it's just so derivative. Like, hey, let's bust out this legendary spot. Let's do an Eddie Guerrero tribute. Let's do Flared Steamboat tribute. Let's do a pedigree. Let's do a rock bottom. I'm surprised they didn't do the stunner. They probably could have if Kevin Owens wasn't already using that as his finisher. It was just really weird that they would be so derivative of that kind of stuff when there's so many other things they can do on their own that don't exactly like borrow from somebody else's work. But I think that the action they had was really good, was really well done. The timing was great. I think both guys can be incredibly proud of having wrestled this matchup, especially with all the hype that they didn't ask for. So much of this match was out of their control. The angles, the unique angles were a bit hokey at times, and the whole hype of the match being the greatest wrestling match ever. Nobody wants to like go in a match preemptively saying it's going to be that, but they did everything that they could do that was within their control, and I think they absolutely aced it. I just think that it was a little bit too much winking and nudging with the other legend finishers, with the excessive finisher kickouts. But yeah, I mean, it was a great match. And then what we find out though is that apparently Edge tore his tricep in that match. You can even see the bruising in his arm after the match is over, which really sucks. I mean, for him to come back from the neck injury and everything, and to come back here and to get hurt like that in his second official match back, I mean, you hope he can rehab in time for SummerSlam or something, because I hope this is not the end of Edge's, even though Orton won and he promised to end the, the rejuvenation or whatever, the revival of Edge, that he wouldn't, you'd hope he comes back and he's able to finally finish it actually on his terms and not let this injury affect him. But, great match. Is it the greatest of all time though? You decide. My grade for Backlash 2020 is a C+. For a show that didn't have a whole lot going for it except for the main event, I think that a lot of the in-ring work here really over-delivered. In particular, the Sheamus and Jeff match, the Drew McIntyre-Bobby Lashley match, Edge and Orton, fantastic main event. They did the best they could do under the circumstances they were given. I think they totally blew away expectations. It was not some 10-second troll job. It was a very well-executed matchup here. And so a lot of the in-ring stuff worked, but there was also some stuff that didn't, like the double countout with Nia and Asuka was weak. And man, that Street Profits Viking Raiders thing, that could have not have happened, and I would have been much happier for the end of the night for having not seen it. But what did you think of Backlash, folks? Where do you think Edge and Orton ranks in the discussion about the greatest wrestling matches of all time? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.
Greatest.